Good evening. Very warm welcome to the edition of Business at 9 with all the big buzzing business news of the day. Vikram Oza here on ET Now. Glad you could join us this evening. In what is clearly a big blow for Patanjali, the Supreme Court has rejected its unconditional apology in that misleading advertisements case. Earlier today, to be able to track what was going on in the courtrooms, my colleague Chaturvedi was at it, and he filed this report soon after we got the word from the Supreme Court about the acceptance, or rather non-acceptance, of the apology from Patanjali.
Well, today, once again, Supreme Court came down heavily on Yoga Guru Baba Ramdev and Patanjali MD Acharya Balkrishna and rejected the apology tendered by both of them in the Supreme Court. Both present here in the Apex Court today. Well, the case pertains to misleading advertisements that were published in November 21 and were again published in December, even after court was they were clearly told not to do so. Court came heavily on them, telling them that they are taking case too lightly, and why not a contempt proceedings should be taken against them, and they should be ready for action. Court.
That's a word that we got earlier today, but let's just put the developments in perspective and whether or not this is a larger takeaway for the FMCG sector or not. Dr. Jayesh Lele is chairman of the IMA National Health Scheme, and Desh Ratan Nigam is a senior lawyer. Great to have you with us, gentlemen. Mr. Nigam, to you first, how significant is this non-acceptance of the apology tendered by Baba Ramdev? What message do you think this sends out by the Supreme Court about the misleading ads of Patanjali?
Well, Vikram, let me make it very clear. As long as the contempt of Supreme Court is concerned, it is a very serious issue. And a client acts on the advice of the lawyers. I'm not very sure what kind of advice was given to him. If I was his lawyer, I would have certainly in the first instance would have, asked him to give an unconditional apology, no ifs and buts, because the contempt is a contempt and courts take it very seriously, especially in the event you have, violated the undertaking given to the court, and about the misleading and disparaging, advertisements. You can highlight any system of medicine can highlight their positive points, but disparaging another system of medicine through advertisement is a no-go area where the courts come down very heavily, and it has been trademarks and patents and other design acts which already have. There are enough numbers of judgment on this issue. So this is one aspect, and the court's majesty and the orders have to be respected. Now, the second aspect is the role of Ayurveda, which is a larger context, and especially in view of the Drugs and Magic Remedies Act, which was passed in 1954. Especially immediately India was coming after the colonial mindset, and at that point of time, under the colonial rule, diseases mentioned therein did not have the cure in allopathy. Allopathy is a very recent, phenomena, and the Ayurveda existed thousands of years, and crores of people still go to the Ayurveda doctors and villages that are getting cured. So a system of medicine is already there, and the mistake that the Patanjali is making was disparaging another system of medicine. We do require a system,
Yes.
the worldwide and in India, an integrated approach towards medicine is being highlighted. In fact, we have Department of Ayush also under the government of India, where they are promoting Ayurveda, homeopathy, Yunani. Therefore, it is a system of medicine, but I don't like the aspect of disparaging any other system of medicine.
Correct.
And government of India must bring out a program where all systems of medicine must be brought on one platform, and they must prove their efficacy towards a particular disease. Which one is the best? I think there the government of India has to take a lead in this.
Let me take that across to Dr. Lele. Dr. Lele, do you believe this is about one system of medicine versus another, or is it more than that? There are several products in the market that claim medicinal efficacy. How emblematic, how much does the Patanjali case stand out as an example of what we see in the Indian landscape of brands that position themselves unfairly, unethically, in a way misleading consumers?
There were two issues about this. One was during the Coronil tablet launch. Corona was not at all to be treated by Coronil, and that is what I and from the IMA side, we approached the Fish Ministry as well as the Health Ministry, and they completely denied. Even they claimed that WHO has given their permission, but WHO also denied that. That was one thing, Coronil. Second instance is it was followed up by a lot of humiliation to the allopathic, as our honorable lawyer just now said, that why you are criticizing the other system of medicine. If it is their system of medicine, let them have their own say, own evidence, and own mechanism of treating the patients. The allopathic was criticized. They were criticized that oxygen should not be given. They were criticized that vaccination should not be given. And in that time, in the second to third wave, so many patients, we had lost it. And in the month of 22, when the case was filed by IMA through our seniors and after the guidance of our supreme leaders, it was very clearly that the cure of diabetes, cure of all other diseases, there it was misconceptions put by allopathic. That was the title given that. So very clearly it was diffaming to the allopathic medicine when the allopathic is doing such a strong. So let them have their Ayurvedic on their own say, allopathic on their say, but criticizing and mispublicizing, that was the main crux of the Honorable Supreme Court, and that
That's
is
right.
what it is appealed.
Yes. But yes, so you're making it appear as it stands that it's about two systems of medicine and that one doesn't have to be disparaging against another. Mr. Nigam, the Supreme Court, though, has clarified that its aim is not to single out a product or a company. Instead, the Supreme Court is trying to convey a message to all FMCG companies that engage in deceptive product claims through its advertisements. How many of these cases do rise to the level that this particular matter has? And how do you think this could affect the way brands approach advertising in India?
Well, Vikram, in fact, if you look at the advertisement scenario in India, there are huge numbers of advertisements which are making misleading and false claims, but none of them have reached the Supreme Court. In fact, the IMA should take up the issue. Why only against Baba Ramdev's Patanjali? That is one aspect. I agree with him that there should be no disparagement of any systems of medicine. All stands on their own legs and they have to prove themselves. However, you look at, I'm not going to name the products which I see, whether it is about toothache or tooth cure or diabetes cure or about, drinking products that, stop your decreasing density and things like that. There are a huge number of, but I seeing this is disproportionate, attack and, kind of an attention to this particular, brand, and especially, and this has been compounded by Patanjali itself by not, sticking to the undertaking of stopping the misleading or other advertisements. I don't think that was the right kind of an advice.
Right.
And please remember, even in US, the patents are being given to products like turmeric, neem, haldi for the medicinal values, which the Council for Scientific Industrial Research, fought tooth and nail and
Yes.
got them cancelled being a traditional knowledge of India. So all the medicinal properties are already recognized in various authorities, various countries and others.
Yes.
But they have to stand on their own legs, not by criticizing others. That is the point I'm trying to make.
Dr. Lele, do you accept that point that perhaps the spectrum of the debate needs to broaden? It's not just about allopathy versus Ayurveda. It's not about the kind of medicines that would cure consumers in one way as opposed to another. In terms of deceptive advertising, that seems to be the point to be made over here, and the Supreme Court is highlighting it.
Absolutely true. Today we are in the evidence-based medicine. Whether it's any system of medicine, that system has to have modern scientific methods of research, modern scientific methods of proving that yes, this product is useful for this particular medicine, patient disease, and ultimately the choice of the which system to use is the patient choice. But to fool the patients by telling that this system is bad, this system is of giving misconception, which is the more criticizing issue. And in fact, that time, the humiliation was occurring all over the world. Corona was such a thing that nobody knew that. And somebody was telling that here it is a world's best medicine, and some of the countries also did advertising, and somehow we at the national level as well as the WHO and ICMR, everybody was in shock that how can this medicine be proved and accepted for corona.
Yes.
So that very clearly advertising has its own role.
What about patents and landmarks, Dr. Lele?
Every system
About patents and landmarks, Dr. Lele, do we need to ensure what the American system is doing as well to be able to bring science into all our systems of medicine? Is that going to make it easier?
Definitely, every patenting is most important, and as our Honorable Supreme Court will look after it, that and taking a clue from this landmark case, I think all the pharma companies, whether it's a Ayurvedic, Unani, homeopathic, or whosoever system of medicine and practicing, they will have proper, justifiable, evidence-based research, and then only the medicine should come into the market without having advertisement kind of this, the proportion which is appearing in newspaper and media and other things.
Mr.
So
Nigam, do you think,
from
taking from what Dr. Lele is saying, do you think the push has to come from the Supreme Court, or do you think the lawmakers have to make a bid for this?
I don't think this is Supreme Court's domain. These are legislative and executive functions, not the Supreme Court. Supreme Court would be encroaching on those functions. It does so. Supreme Court may, rule in this particular case, but it is the call for the legislatures to, frame the issues. Now, I'll give you another example. Now, government has made a law where only medicines with generic names have to be prescribed. But doctors, even under IMA, are not following that. They write a particular brand. Is the influence of pharma lobby in the allopathic sector is making a lot of influences in the decision making, and therefore that's a point that has to be kept in mind. Still, I see doctors writing brand names, particular of companies where probably a lot of gifts were given by this. These are the ailments that our system is suffering.
Yes.
I know private hospitals are not writing generic names by salt.
Yes.
So these are the issues that have to be taken up and strictly adhered to.
Yes.
And especially I said the world is moving towards integrated health medicine.
Correct.
Not isolated one system of medicine, but they are taking the best. In fact, All India Institute of Medical Sciences has integrated health clinic, which is integrated yoga, Ayurveda, and modern medicines and inquisitive. Every system of medicine has to go through clinical protocol that has been laid down.
Yes.
And that probably all other medical systems or medicines are catching up with that.
Yes.
They're also doing that clinical trial and protocol.
Yes. But having said all this, the point and the strongest point made by the Supreme Court is that any kind of deception when it comes to branding and advertising, that should go out of the window. And perhaps it's the legislative push this requires to be able to move that direction, and perhaps we will in times to come, and this is going to be an emblematic case. At least that's the hope. Dr. Lele, Mr. Nigam, thank you very much for joining us with your perspective on this issue on this edition of Business at 9.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.